What's up, everybody? Today we are going to be talking about backing up our data with Duplicati. As you can see here, Duplicati is a zero trust backup from any operating system to any destination that you can manage from anywhere. It's a pretty amazing container that does automated backup and restoration. The first thing we're going to want to do for Duplicati install is to create some data sets. We're going to go ahead and create a few data sets. So the first thing we want to do is create a configuration data set for Duplicati. I'm going to add a data set here. It's going to be called Duplicati, just like that. And I'm going to use a data set for apps. To be fair, I don't actually need to use the dataset preset apps, but I'm going to get to that a little bit later. Let's go ahead and hit save. And that's going to be for the configuration files of Duplicati. Now, Duplicati is going to need two more data sets. The first one is going to be for where we're going to put the backups. This is going to be interesting because you don't necessarily have to put the backups in the same place that you put the configuration files. In this case, I'm going to probably want to put my configuration files on flash storage. But because I'm using Duplicati as a backup, or maybe using it as an interface to get my stuff somewhere else, in the event that I ever want to back up locally, I may choose to put backups on maybe Spinning Rust, a large pool full of HDDs. So we can create a completely separate data set on a different pool that maybe has more space. I'm not going to do that in this case because this is just my test instance and I don't actually have a secondary pool. But on my production TrueNAS server, I have both flash storage and I have Spinning Rust storage. So if I was going to use Duplicati for local backups, I would probably put my backups drive or directory or data set on the big pool that I have that's terabytes large, not on my flash storage. In this case, I'm not going to do that, so I'm going to add a data set here. I'm going to call this backups, like that. Again, I'm going to use apps as the data set preset, but that's not going to be important because I'm going to show you how we're going to do permissions a little bit later. I'm going to go ahead and hit save. There's going to be a third data set or volume we're going to need for Duplicati, but it's not going to need to be created on our TrueNAS host because it's basically the data set we're going to be passing in that we're going to be selecting the files for backup. In order to install Duplicati on the TrueNAS host, I'm going to go ahead and go to my apps tab and click discover apps. I can type in Duplicati up here as I have, and you'll see it starts showing up in the results. I'm going to click that and then click install. Go ahead and jump over to the wiki page. You'll see it in Duplicati under productivity apps and then Duplicati. The first thing we're going to want to do is add a password here. You have the option here of adding an encryption key. If you want to encrypt your data, you're going to want to use a strong encryption key here. This will be the key that's used to encrypt all the data that is in Duplicati as you back it up. For user and group configuration, the issue with Duplicati is it's going to run as 568, which means it's going to have permissions for any data created on 568. So the data sets that we created before were always a 568, and that's fine. The issue is going to be when we try and back up data, for example, that's not user group 568. Right now, we can't set this to 0 as root within TrueNAS because the minimum value is 568. So we're going to leave it on TrueNAS as 568. Scrolling down here, we can leave the web port here if that's what you want to do. We're going to want to change the data storage, put our data in a host path, and we've already created this in tank configs Duplicati. Next, we're going to want to add additional storage. See, it defaults here to storage entry. We're going to change this around. We're going to want to change this to host path. This is going to be backups. And again, we're going to pick the host path I made, but you might not choose to do a host path that's on your flash storage. You may have chosen to do some kind of host path that's on a larger storage pool. We're going to need one more additional storage, and you'll see here it keeps trying to default to storage entry. We're not going to do that. We are going to pick the data set that we actually want to have access to within Duplicati. So for example, on our host path, we need to pick which data sets I want to allow Duplicati to see. So in this case, I'm going to let it see my whole tank pool, but you guys pick wisely when it comes to what you want to pass in to Duplicati. So I'm going to pick tank, my whole pool, and the mount path here has to be source, just like that. Good, I'm going to go ahead and deploy this. To install via Docker, I'm going to go ahead and click the Docker Compose tab over here, and I'm just going to copy this entire block over to my Dockage. I'm going to do a new compose stack. I'm going to call this Duplicati, and I'm going to remove all this placeholder data and paste just like this. You'll notice there's been a few changes here. The first change is the fact that I can run this as PUID and PGID, my user ID and my group ID as 0, in other words, root. This is going to give me access to a lot more data to back up. Because the TrueNAS community app only lets me install as user group 568 or above, I'll never be able to get access to data sets that are owned by root, which in my case are quite a few data sets. This is going to force me, if I wanted to use those data sets for backup, into the Docker Compose instead of the TrueNAS community catalog. You'll see here we have the option to do a web service password. In this case, I just picked change me. You guys will pick a much more secure password. You can see here I have mount tank configs Duplicati for my config directory. I'm going to change this to my backup directory. Right now I just put it as mount mount tank backups to give you guys an example of how you can use another directory or data set in this case for your backups locally. Here, this is my source directory, again, mounted as /source. I'm going to change this to just mount tank, just so it can see my tank pool and nothing else. It's going to run on port 8200. I'm going to go ahead and hit deploy. Let's go ahead and log on to Duplicati for the first time. And click my web UI button. I'm going to be taken right here. Go ahead and log in. It's going to ask me for my password. Here we are at the home screen after the first login. And since this is backup software, the first thing we're going to do is run through adding a backup. Let's click add a backup and configure a new backup. I'm just going to call this backup test like that. I'm not going to use any encryption at all. I'm going to go ahead and hit next. So the destination, again, we have the option to do it here on the local drive. And if we do, this is the local drive folder that we have created. I don't want to use a local backup. I want to use one of the fancier methods here. So we see here when I click this drop down option, I have a ton of options. There's some just standard protocols like FTP, OpenStack, and S3, WebDAV, SSH, but the proprietary ones are the really fun ones. This gives me the option to use something like Azure, Dropbox, Google, Jada, Office. You guys can see all these options here. But for this example, I'm going to do something pretty straight up. I'm going to go ahead and pick a Google Drive. It's going to default the path on the server to backups. I'm going to change this to just something like Duplicati, so I know where it is, like that. And then I want to create an auth ID. The first thing you want to do is click this little blue thing right here, and it's going to say, open up this little pop-up and ask you to click this, log into your Google Drive, and give Duplicati permissions. When you do that, it's going to automatically print out this auth ID key, and you're just going to copy and paste it into this box. After I click next, I'm brought to the page that allows me to select my source data. To find the source data that I mounted, remember I mounted it to /source. So I'm going to go into the computer here. I'm going to scroll until I find the source directory. There it is. I'm going to expand that, and here is my entire tank pool. You'll see my configs. I want to take a look at my stacks directory. There's quite a few stacks here. I just want to back up my stacks directory into my Google Drive. So I'm going to select the stacks box, and it's going to automatically check every directory underneath it. I'm going to go ahead and hit next. I'm going to automatically run the backups, and it gives me the chance to select what time I'm going to do it, run every day, and you can go ahead and select your schedule here. I'm going to hit next. The remote volume size. This is the way it's going to break up the backups. So when I back this up to my Google Drive, it's not going to back them up as you see it in the folder structure. It's going to break them into volumes, in case of 50 megabytes. I'm going to go ahead and change this to 250 megabyte chunks like that, and you guys can change it to whatever you want. The backup retention, this is a very important thing. I don't want to keep all backups. It'll fill up my space super quickly. I have the option of deleting backups that are older than a certain date, picking a number of backups. They have something called smart backup retention and custom backup retention. I'm going to go ahead and just say delete backups that are older than 7 days. So it'll keep a week's worth of backup. I'm going to go ahead and hit save. I'm going to continue without encryption. It's scheduled to run today at 1 p.m., but I don't want to do this demonstration now, so I'm just going to click run now. See here, it's uploading 252 megabytes for 4,000 files. About 47 seconds to get all those files up there. The source was 278 megabytes. The backup was 101 megabytes. So I can go ahead and jump over to my actual Google Drive now, and you can see here, this is the Duplicati folder, and this is what it actually uploaded. It's a 100 megabyte volume right here, and ended up being a .zip file. There is another two files here that are kilobytes that were just built when this backup was completed. So let's jump back over to Duplicati, and we can see here it's done. So if we go back to my homepage, this shows you everything about it. You can see the operations here, all the other things here. We can verify files. We can show the log. What if I've done my backup and now I want to restore my backup? You can see here there's two options for restore. When I expand this little arrow for test, there's a restore here, restore files, and there's another restore over here. If we want to create a restore, or we can go ahead and pick any of these things here. In this case, I'm going to pick test, but we can restore from backup files. We can restore from configuration. You can go directly to your backup task here and just click restore files. This is going to show me where all the files are in the folder. So you can see here, this is everything. I can tell it which files to do. I can select all these and hit continue. Where do I want to store the files to? I can say original location. I can pick a new location. I'm going to say original location. How do I want to handle existing files? You can go ahead and save and differentiate or overwrite. And of course, you always want to check the box to restore read-write permissions. If you don't check this box, you're not going to have permission to your own data. So you can go ahead and hit restore, and it'll go ahead and pull those files down from the cloud and put them on the existing data set. One of the interesting things you can do with Duplicati is you can manage many of these endpoints from a central location. So say, for example, I have 3 or 4 servers all running Duplicati. I would not have to log into the Duplicati Docker container of each of these servers. I can collect them all in one central location. Go ahead and go to settings, and where it says remote access control here, you're going to want to click register for remote account. Now it's been registered, I can go ahead and click this hyperlink that it gives me to go ahead and register it with my user. I'm going to go ahead and create a sign-in with my Google account. Now I get the option to register this machine. I'm going to go ahead and hit register. Here is my Duplicati dashboard. You can see here I have my machines linked. So you can see here this is the machine name, and I'm going to change this to something more human readable like that. I'm going to go ahead and hit save. There we go. So now within my dashboard, I can go ahead and manage all my backups backups right from here. So I can go ahead and click backups, and we see here we have no backups found. I can go ahead and get started and make some backups if I want. In order to get my machine to show up here, I'm going to go back to my Duplicati, scroll all the way down to my settings to advanced options here. I'm going to click edit as text, and I'm going to go ahead and paste the key that it gave me, this key right here, right in my options. And I'm going to go ahead and hit OK. So when I come back up to Duplicati, I'm going to go ahead and hit next step, and go back to my dashboard. Now that my machine is linked, you're going to want to go ahead and go to the details and click grant license. You're going to see you have the options to do these things now. I can revoke my license, delete my machine, look at the overview, or start the session. So I'm going to go back to my machines, and I'm going to go ahead and click start session. And now that I'm connected, you can see this is actually remoting into the existing machine that I have, and I can see here that my test backup exists. It goes to Google Drive. It's next scheduled to run in 3 hours, and it's up and running. I can go ahead and use any of these options here. I can go ahead and add a backup, I can restore from a backup, or I can go into the settings of the machine itself. So this is pretty amazing because in my opinion, when I look at the Duplicati UI here locally, this is great, and you don't ever need to use an account or do anything in terms of registering for anything on Duplicati.com. But when I do, I get the option to really collect all the Duplicati instances I have running across all of my servers. So that's pretty amazing that I can get this functionality for free. And in the event there's any kind of problem, I can come to this dashboard and it'll tell me whether or not anything was broken, any of the backups didn't work, and I can go ahead and restore remote backups from here. So without even needing to log onto a server, I can go ahead and log into one of these machines, and I can say restore from here without even actually being connected to my TrueNAS machine on my local network, which is a pretty powerful option considering that this is completely and totally free. That's a quick overview of Duplicati. The demonstration you just saw was done in Dockage. In the event you're having issues with the TrueNAS community catalog, I recommend you try the Dockage version running as root instead of the community catalog running as 568. This is a pretty powerful piece of software, and the amazing thing about it is it runs the same from everywhere. Right now I did this on TrueNAS, but if I had an Ubuntu system, if I had a Windows system, if I had a Mac system, this looks the same on every single system you start with. So it's a really easy way to get started, and once you get used to the interface, it's pretty amazing. Go ahead and give it a shot and let me know what you think in the comments below. This video was voted on by the users, so if you want to see other videos in the future, please jump on Discord and go ahead and vote every single time we put it up, which is usually on Sundays, and then sometime that week after the vote is complete, we go ahead and we create this video. So thank you for everybody who voted for Duplicati. I hope you guys like this. Like and subscribe to the channel, please. Leave a comment below. Make sure you're giving this a big thumbs up. Click the little bell to be notified when we upload new videos. And if you want to thank me personally, please buy me a coffee.